From a strategy perspective, there's a couple of things that I see are working. Number one, social media. People getting committed to a social media strategy. And that's not posting once a week, that's posting every day and really being very consistent. I had a guy on my call a couple of weeks ago. He's out of New Mexico, and he has doubled his business from last year to this year, and the year before doubled from that year to this year. So he has literally had a 200% increase in his business year over the last 2 years, basically. He credits it social media 100%.
Natalie Overturf, welcome to the show.
Hi, Jeff. I'm excited to be here today.
I wanted to bring your perspective to the conversation here today because here we are in May, 27th already, almost the halfway point of 2025 here, right? And so you are a leader, you're overseeing a region, a highly productive, one of the top regions, for your company. And I wanted to get your perspective on what is the vibe? Like, so we're talking to loan officers across the country at all different levels, right? And experience level. Is there a theme or a word that you see kind of recurring for your team from a leadership perspective that you seem to always have? It's coming up that you have to deal with.
Yeah, I would say the word is hard. Like, it's the word of the year of 2025. Hard loans, hard market, just hard. It's hard. And I feel like part of my job here in a leadership role is to make sure that my owner and exec leadership understands the complexity and the difficulties of this market. Like, even when you get a deal in the door and you win the deal, it's keeping the deal. Like, we're having more deals swiped at closing, be it for price or inspection didn't go well, or just people getting spooked and deciding to bail on a transaction than probably anything I've ever seen before. And so support from your company, tools, resources, pricing, innovation, all of it matters today because you got to have all the tools in your arsenal to make it work.
How big is the division that you lead? What's the head count?
I'm at about 280 loan officers today in my division. I'm actually the largest division at CMG today. Last month we closed, I don't know where we're going to land for May, but April we were about 438 million in closed volume for my division. So it's a fairly large division.
What are you seeing for like average units? And I know it can skew, but
I just looked at this, interestingly enough, because it is a really important metric right now as loans closed per loan officer. There is a divide happening to where you're seeing the top, what I would say probably 60% of LOs capturing more business, and the bottom 30 to 40 losing transactions that I think will continue to force out that bottom rung of originators if they don't step it up. But we're right about 4.3 loans closed per loan officer, which is a really good metric in our industry. It's probably in the top one or two compared to the other IMBs nationally.
Yeah, I would say so. I saw there's a post, I think on LinkedIn recently about that, like average transaction count. And there was a conversation around that was, what do you think the average unit production should be to keep somebody on? Now, I don't want to put you on the spot here, right?
It's two. You need to close 2 loans per month. And what I would say, maybe depending on your loan amount, it's 1 to 2, your average loan amount. I mean, I have in my division, I have Idaho, small markets, to LA, which is, more metro, higher loan amounts. So a LA loan officer can do 1 loan a month and survive. And my Idaho guy is probably doing 2 loans a month. So but really, it's for the health of the company. It's for the health of the originator. Like, you can't survive. You're not in a career as a loan officer if you're not closing a deal a month, right? You don't know how to work in the systems. You're not actively marketing. You're not a part of the community. At least that's not our model, what I would say. There's probably places you can go where you might do a couple of deals a year, but I don't think that serves the loan officer or our profession, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, I know plenty of my old friends in Newport Beach, California, where I now live here in Vegas, so the loan amounts are different. But yeah, I mean, if you're doing $1 million, $2 million a loan, but as you said, it's like, is that a real business?
It is probably not.
No.
Probably not. And I'm having less of those conversations. We were having more of those when we came out of the 21 market, right? Where, volume just took a nosedive. And I mean, we've lost a lot of, I don't even know what the number is now. I mean, over 100,000 originators have exited the business over the last 2 years. And so I feel like there's a lot less of those people here, at least inside of our organization.
Well, that speaks a lot to your culture, who you attract and who you keep also. You made a comment a moment ago when I asked you that question about average transactions, and you kind of alluded to something about another a segment of the population of loan officers rolling out, and if they're not hitting a certain threshold of production, they're losing, whatever the terms is you said. But what for the people who aren't hitting those numbers, or the 4 per month, like I think you said something about like they're not being able to convert. What do you, let's go a little bit deeper. Why do you think, because you see how many people are in the pipeline. I don't know if you're looking at rate locks to conversions or how you're doing it. Okay. And then you're seeing how many are losing, and by price, let's say, I think is what you said, like losing on a quarter or an eighth or something.
Well, yeah, I mean, part of it is, for when if the market moves, down, people try and swipe a deal out of your pipeline at the last minute. We're seeing more of those kind of things happen, where a loan officer lost the deal at the beginning and then tries to steal it at the end. We don't lose them a lot, but occasionally we're having to come back in with a price exception to keep the deal. I mean, I talked to a lot of my industry peers, and it's happening, right? Or we just have really complex loans. And so if you're not a student of your craft and you don't know the guidelines, you don't know your way around not just the standard 30-year fixed, but you understand our non-QM, you understand, reverse, construction, renovation, like all the pillars of your business, and you aren't able to place loans correctly, you're going to be at risk of not closing as many transactions. And I think we actually do a really good job of that here. I do a Monday call every Monday with my team. It's an optional call, but it's called our Success Stories call, where I have a loan officer. It doesn't have to necessarily be someone, that's in our top 10. Any loan officer that I see that's having success with a certain strategy or a certain product will come on and share. It's a quick 30-minute kind of down and dirty call, but they share what they're doing. We really try and collaborate more, the rising tide lifts all ships, philosophy versus competing against one another. It's more drafting off of each other. And so we really do try and spread the good word on what is working for others, because it is a hard market. And if we can lock arms and help each other, it actually helps the team at large.
Well, it's funny. I was talking with somebody the other day about this, and it was in the real estate context, but I've said the same answer when people talked about becoming a loan officer, because I have a fair amount of people who get on my calendar a variety of different ways at different levels of experience. But when somebody's newer, one of the answers and they ask about like how to, succeed in this market, this business, whatever. I usually talk about, find a team that you can join to get leadership, mentorship, to, kind of learn the ropes. So I love that you alluded to that. It seems like your company is strong on that, coming together as a team. And as you said, the rising tide lifts all boats.
Yeah. And I also think today you have to be willing to put the work in. I think I saw a podcast that you did, and I can't remember who said it, but it's like, it's back to the basics. I mean, everybody's talking about this. It is back to the basics. It's eye to eye, toe to toe. Like we had a national conference, and one of our very successful builder originators asked the group, how many of you are going out every weekend to visit builder sites and open houses? And, you might get 10% of your population that is doing that, which is a little shocking, because I think loan officers feel like everybody's doing it, so I'm not going to do it too. But that's actually not the reality. The reality is most aren't doing it. And so there is opportunity there. That I do think we make assumptions that everybody else is calling that top agent, or they're going out to open houses on the weekend. It just isn't true. It's not true. And we're missing opportunity.
I used to think that too.
When I was a loan officer.
Yeah, I did. I remember having a conversation with Alec Hansen a few years ago. We were on each other's podcast, and he was in my same market in Mission Viejo, Orange County, California. And he would tell the story about how sitting out in front of this open house, and like the mega producer agent was inside the open house, and you would pull up, and he talks about the story how he's like working himself up, pumping himself up to get the courage to get, and then he's like too fearful and drives off as you go in.
We've all been there. Yeah. Jeff, we've all done that, actually.
Exactly.
I have too.
Well, I want to go back to something else as well that you said. The hard is the word that you talked about. And then what I heard you say is something about you've got to know your, like you mentioned, DSCR, non-QM, new construction. My question for you is this: do you because we hear a lot about marketing, we hear a lot about niching down,
Mhm.
specialization, and things like that.
Yes.
So do you think you need to be today more of the word that comes to mind is generalist versus specialist, but it sounds like what you're saying is you need to today have a broad understanding of products to be able to deliver a solution
I
because of the
actually,
market.
I'm going to give you a really crazy answer. I'm going to say I think it's both. And I actually, in my note, because I did take some notes ahead, one of the things that I find is really helping our top producers is niching down. But that doesn't mean they don't understand a broad variety of what's available in the marketplace. I mean, non QM obviously is becoming a bigger part of the marketplace. Um, I think we've got 95 total different non-QM products, between all the different investors. And I mean, obviously no one person is going to know all those products, but you need to have a general understanding of what a DSCR loan is and what a bank statement or 1099 or, so that you can help your clients. But niching, I think, is very important today because it's part of your brand and you have to have a brand to really, I think, be relevant today as an originator. So I think it's both, actually.
So you think the niche, the specialty brings them in, right? And yet it's kind of that argument we've always heard of like, well, if I specialize, I'm going to lose out on all this other business.
Well, I actually took some notes on just a few of our top guys that I feel are in our top 10 nationally.
Okay.
A few of them happen to be in my world, but I can just give you three out of these four are in my division. So Brady Thomas, he's in Oakland and
I know Brady.
yeah, he joined our team in January.
Yeah.
He has the two home tango. So his kind of thing that he markets is basically being able to buy before you sell. That's his niche. That's his brand. He markets the heck out of it. But Brady does everything, right? He's not just doing the buy before you sell. And so I think he is a great example of someone that niches, but still
still
does.
attracts a wide audience as well because people look at him for his expertise on that buy before you sell and they're like, well, I don't need to do that, but this guy's obviously smart, knows what he's talking about.
Knows what he does, knows what he's doing. Yes, he does a lot on social, so I also think he's done a really good job of branding himself on social. Another really good example is Carrie Ann Sear. She's not in my market. She's in Nashville. But if you go to her social, she's all about events. The girl does events all the time, not just puts on events. She takes agents to events. She's like, you don't have to actually put the event on. You can just get a group together and go to events. She's like put on Dancing with the Stars. She used to be a dancer. She puts on Dancing with the Stars. She goes like big with it. But Carrie Ann's closed 50 million so far this year. Like she's like
already in May.
Already in May. Brady's closed right about 50 million too. So they both are at that $50 million mark and they have chosen to find their niche, right?
Okay.
So
next question, I'm going to jump in here. What's their primary source of business? Do you know?
Agents, realtors.
What?
Real estate agents.
I'm
yes.
sorry. I thought agents were becoming irrelevant, and like we're going consumer direct and that's where everybody should be looking.
I think it's so interesting over all these years, everybody's looking for kind of that magic unicorn source of business outside of the real estate world, but the predominant source of business is real estate agents and builder, I would say. These are not builder agents, but builder and real estate agents for sure.
I'm having a little bit of fun with it. Obviously, the reason being is because I'm sure you see some of the narrative out there about like people throwing agents under the bus, like stop chasing the coffee. No agent wants to meet you for like all the stuff we see, right? And there's like this narrative of like forget agents. Aren't you tired of what I mean? That whole thing, and like you just proved the point.
Yeah, but I mean, agents are our partners, right, in this. And if we partner and look at it as a partnership and approach, we shouldn't work with every agent and every agent shouldn't work with us. But there's a lot of very good real estate agents that approach this business, professionally and want to partner with a good originator. And we work with a lot of them every day. I will say Harrison and Boise, the main source of his business, oddly enough, he niched down. We have our all-in-one first lien HELOC product, which is a big
buy before you sell thing, or what is that?
No, it's the all-in-one loan, which is basically it's a purchase mortgage HELOC product, right? So and and it's used with financial planners as a tool to pay off your home early. And so Harrison has found financial planners and YouTube influencers. He has a couple of YouTubers that he has found that he is actually working with to do lead generation with. And Harrison's right about, he's 44 million year to date. So that's been,
Shout out Harrison.
I know. So Harrison, he's in Boise, and
what's his last name?
George.
I'm going to look him up.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. See, now this is what's great. Okay. We're not saying, you shouldn't think about going consumer direct and be smart and be a modern originator and think about building a personal brand, maybe having a YouTube channel or, having social customer facing. We're not saying that.
No.
Like I think you and I are on the same page of saying, don't chase that at the demise of the pillar, the one fundamental, two, referral partners, all that. That's more the now business, which is what I always tell LOs is like, yes, like you need business now. Great. Go with the referral partners, SOI, and yes, build these other pillars here, but just know that those are going to be longer term.
Well, and it was longer term for Harrison. It took him a long time to build regular referral sources with the financial plan. It's a longer term play. And I do agree. If you need business today, you need to be having regular conversations and meetings with real estate agents. It's the fastest way.
Which most people need business today because they closed their loan last month, right?
They do. We all do. I would agree with that.
Starting over every month, man.
That's right. I know. You remember Brian Hale. Do you know who Brian Hale is? Yeah. So he was our leader when I was at MetLife years ago. And I'll never forget the shout out to Brian Hale. He said on a call, the self-sourced loan originator wakes up broke the first of every month. And I'm just like, there is no more true statement in this business, having to recreate your success every 30 days. It's what makes our business so challenging and unique, but also we're well compensated for it because it is so hard.
Yeah. Okay. So the word thus far for the year has been hard. I want to run the balance between strategy, strategic and tactical, because I always want to give somebody tactical that they can walk out of here today, listening to us, watching us, and apply. So is there any, so you've got your team meeting, your regional, you got the people on the call. Do you have go in your local markets, execute? Is there some activities you'd like to suggest that work right now?
Well, I would say open houses on the weekends are the place that people are going and getting business today, like visiting open houses. And very few loan officers are doing it. The other place that we're having a lot of success is being backup for builder preferred lenders, being the number two, like approaching the builder saying, hey, we know you have your own in-house or builder owned mortgage company, but what we find is they have a very small box of available products for clients. And so a lot of their fallout, they don't have any place for it. And so we actually have a couple of very large builders that we work with where we are actually getting the incentive that they would give the builder mortgage company that's tied to the builder mortgage company if it's a turn down that they give to us. So to me, those are the two places that you can meet people where they are, right?
What's the approach to the builder? Give me an example. I don't want to put you on a spot, but the call or whatever, hi, my name's Jeff with CMG. And
yeah. Well, first of all, I do research, right? We actually have a new technology called Zonda, which is a data source.
Commercial. Yeah. It's the app that has all the builders,
like MMI for builders, right? And so you can literally go in and see who's got standing inventory, who's doing loans, what kind of product they have. So I always say you shouldn't use the pray and spray approach. You need to be strategic, do your homework, and then find out who's the gatekeeper, right? It is visiting the site, meeting the site agent, finding out who you need to talk to, who are the decision makers, bringing them coffee on the weekend, starting to build those relationships. I always say it's a long game, right? Rome wasn't built in a day, but find out who the decision makers are and then approach them with a proposal. Like, we have this, and this product. We can help you move. We do builder forwards, mini builder forwards. So a lot of companies do builder forwards or being able to lock inventory that's sitting with, builder concessions that you can advertise a rate on. I mean, we bring them strategies and how to teach their sales team how to sell and there's a lot more sitting inventory today than there was 3 months ago. I
Yeah,
mean,
for sure.
a lot more. So there is an opportunity when homes are flying off the shelves, like in 20 and 21, you're just, another loan officer. Today we can be partners and approach it like, let me help you sell a home. So
Right. So for those who
that's
didn't
how
catch it, that's called Zonda, I believe.
Zonda,
Zonda.
Zonda.
Right. And
Yes,
that's a tool like MMI, but for builders, which is an
correct.
intelligence database tool.
That's correct.
That's cool. Yeah, I've heard of other ideas because what the builder wants is they want traffic, right?
Yes.
And so I've heard of loan officers that will host events. You know how they do the listing pitches, like realtors show up and they go, "Here's the listings I have, the hot listings, or here's a hot buyer
Oh,
meeting."
that's a great idea, actually.
Yeah,
Make a note of that.
good. I can pour an idea into you today. But yeah, I've had a couple of LOs who've done that successfully because then they're like, "Hey, can I host a listing pitch at this, builder development? We're going to get 20 agents in the room, and they're all going to see the development, more
Mhm.
exposure, and all that fun stuff." Now, depending on the builder
Yeah, that's a great idea.
requirements, what they have with that, but that's useful, and or other types of just social functions and events.
Mhm.
Like one of the ones we have here in Vegas in the city is there's a place called it's called Downtown, and it's kind of older non-strip for those who aren't in the know,
Yeah,
Vegas.
yeah, yeah.
And there's a high rise being built in this area that's been totally refurbished, and it's by Siegstrom Hall, which is this like place where they have these amazing symphonies and plays and
Mhm.
concerts and stuff. Anyway, this is a high-end high rise. I'm talking 2 million above per unit. And realtors and lenders and title have been hosting their weekly listing pitch meetings there
Right.
instead of
Wow.
at the local restaurant or
Oh,
whatever.
that's such a great idea if you have those places available. I love that. I love anywhere where you can get people together. And as far as strategy is concerned, I mean, I do a call every week with top producers who share what they're doing.
Yeah.
And from a strategy perspective, there's a couple of things that I see are working. Number one, social media, people getting committed to a social media strategy. And that's not posting once a week, that's posting every day and really being very consistent. And I've recently really started going, posting every day on my social media, and I am starting to see traction and more followers, but it is a commitment and you got to commit to it. But the ones that I had a guy on my call a couple of weeks ago. He's out of New Mexico, and he has doubled his business from last year to this year, and the year before doubled from that year to this year. So he has literally had a 200% increase in his business year over year over the last 2 years, basically. And he credits it social media 100%. His name is Paul Parsons, out of New Mexico, and he's just an awesome guy. Small market, small loan amounts, going outside of his market. It's allowing him to reach outside of his market, his immediate market, where it's a little bit slower, or he's worked with a lot of the people there. So it's definitely allowed him to extend his reach. So social
Do you
media
have
is
any idea what kind of content or which platform?
Instagram has been mostly what he does, and he posts 3 or 4 times a day. You can go look at his Instagram handle. Paul Parsons, creative stuff, some funny videos, some of it's educational content, some of it's at closing, some of it's his personal life. He does a little bit of everything. Market updates, a few. Doesn't do. I mean, he says quit posting, the boring charts. That it's not that you don't put some of that on there, but you need more exciting content for people to engage. But he said he's just getting more.
I found him right here. I'll put a link in the show notes, but it's Home Loan Superhero.
Yes, that is him.
This is his Instagram. Yeah. Very interesting. All right. I'll go check that out. So people go
Yeah.
follow his content, see what it's all about. Because you obviously see a lot of loan officers with the size of the team that you have. Speaking of social media, what do you see as the most common areas of resistance that keeps people from really tapping that?
Video.
Don't want to be on video. Don't like this.
Be on video. Yes. They don't want to hear themselves. They don't want to see themselves. And I always tell them, like, that's what you look like. Yeah. That's what you sound like. So you can't hide that, And I do think that, and it's interesting because I have twin daughters that are 20 years old. They're both in college. And I talk to them a lot about what's going on with AI. And it's an emerging thing for them in the job market that they're looking at out of college. And there is a real desire for authenticity now, where people want to see the real you on video and talking. They don't want the polished, over edited, they want to see real. And And I think that trend will continue, to be honest. I mean, get on video, talk about yourself, talk about what you're doing, let people get to know you.
Well, I want to geek out for a second on the video, because I'm sure you've seen the AI generated videos.
I have seen the AI. I've tried the Hey Jen, and I just can't get the voice does not sound like mine. I just wanted to give it a try. I'm like, that doesn't even sound like me.
Just give it time, it will. What's your take on that? Yeah, just open-ended question.
Yeah, I'm an adopter because I use ChatGPT a lot. I am a big fan of AI. I use Plod. I use Typeset. Actually, Jeremy Forcier turned me on to a couple of cool things a few weeks ago when I saw him in a mastermind. Like, I'm a big fan of AI. I feel like if you're not an adopter, you're going to get left behind. I do have some mixed feelings about it, though. Especially with video, your avatar being generated, you need to tell people that's not you. I mean, that's my thing. It's like, if you're not you, there needs to be a disclaimer on there that this is a video or AI
generated. Yeah.
Yes. So to me, we shouldn't be fooling people. We should tell them what they're getting. Now, whether that will become, there's not a lot of rules around AI yet. So it's kind of that wild, wild west. We'll see where it goes.
Well, I think it goes back to the point you're really making, and this, even further back to what is the number one source of your top producer's business, and it's, comes back to having conversations. Isn't that the real game of everything we're trying to play? Whether you're running
100%.
ads, whether you're doing social, you're doing classes and events, the bottom line is how many people you're talking to.
That's right. And I always tell my team, when I look at the success I've had over the years, whether that was in origination or recruiting or business development, it always is in direct correlation with the number and quality of conversations that I have every day, whether that's over the phone, in person. And so many of our loan officers are just resistant to the phone. I mean, I work a lot with my team on, you got to pick up the phone and call people or get out and see people in person. Like, you can't hide behind email. You have to get out and talk to people.
Those originators you refer to there that are resistant to the phone, how long have they been in the business?
Long time. A long time. They just don't want to make cold calls. They don't want to call people that they haven't worked with in a while. And in fact, I had an interesting conversation with one of my loan officers who worked for us for a really long time and actually did a lot of volume in 2021. And I do think, and this is not to be critical or judgmental, we were in a decade of our business where if we were doing a good job with our database and we were staying in good contact with our agents, business kind of just kept rolling, right? We didn't have to do a lot of the extra. And we're in a market where you have to do the extra. I mean, I just saw the purchase market's down 7.5% year to date. I mean, the purchase market is not growing right now. In fact, it's shrinking a little bit. And then the refis are kind of like going like this, depending on what's going to happen in the interest rate market. And so she's like, I just can't see myself out, going to open houses and calling on these young agents that, I know more than they know. And I'm just like, if that's how you're going to think about it, you're right. You shouldn't be doing that because you're probably not going to stay in this profession for the long term.
Is that ego getting in the way? Like, open houses are beneath me.
Yeah, I think it's part of that. I think it's just exhaustion too. I mean, I think there's a certain part of, the originator that's been doing this a long time that just doesn't maybe have the energy. But I have a younger contingency of loan officers I have one that's in their late 20s all the way into their mid to late 30s that just are getting after it, right? They just don't have all the kind of the same paradigms and the old stuff. And they're just excited for the opportunity.
Well, it reminds me, earlier today, I was on someone else's podcast and they were asking similar questions, and, not to sound self-serving, but, 5 years ago, they're referring to this book I wrote 5 years ago, which is called Disrupt or Die.
I read that. It's great.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
I don't have my shelf behind me anymore because I redid my office here, but the whole point of this is, there's something I talk about in there and I've talked about a lot, which is the whole notion of survival of the fittest, and that's actually not accurate. If you want to go back to, and I don't want to be like, oh, I'm a Darwin guy, but I actually looked up the actual original kind of writing of that survival of the fittest, and that's not actually accurate. It's not the strongest to survive. It is the most adaptable to change.
Right. That's right. Yes, I could not agree more. And if you are not going to adapt right now, you're going to be in trouble. Maybe not today. It's not going to take long. And I feel like AI is not going to take over. It's interesting that everybody asks, what do I think about the the Rocket, Redfin,
Yeah.
the acquisition there. What kind of impact is that going to have? You didn't ask me, but I'll
No,
ask.
but I'm glad you brought it up because it's relevant. I want to, yeah.
Yeah, it's a really interesting. I looked up, like Rocket has like 4% market share.
Yeah.
Redfin had less than 1%, right? And so that's 5% market share. But they're saying that could 4 times, right? Because of the capability with search, that it could go to 16%. They would go from 4 to 16 because of this 1% acquisition, because of the search and the brokerage. And I don't know if I buy that. I got to be honest with you. Redfin gives them some strategic players, but Rocket is still Rocket, right? It's the bot that you're doing alone with.
Yeah.
Our superpower is our humanity and our ability to connect and build relationships. And Rocket has tried to have the self-sourced originator out in markets, and it didn't work. They tried to get realtors to be loan officers, and that didn't work. They actually did away with that program. So I think they'll take some share, and maybe I'm being naive, but I think if we do our jobs and we do them well, we can, at least on the purchase front. Refis are a different story.
I was going to say, for me, the Mr. Cooper acquisition is a little bit more troublesome.
Well, refis in general are going to be tough for the self-sourced originator unless comp comes way down on those. It's just going to be very, very hard, very hard to compete.
Right. And well, I mean, I always lived and died by the refi, right? So you've got to build your purchase pipeline, or else what are you really doing?
Yes.
Yeah. And I think,
agree.
Your word that we opened up with is pretty accurate, because it is hard, harder. There's so many more things to consider these days with, back when I got in 2003, there was no social media, right? And so it was pretty clear, man, go out and meet people, do events, all that fun stuff, phone calls. And it was just like, and now it's just like, oh, I need a personal brand. I need video. I need this and this and this.
Well, and I think people get overwhelmed because there is like so many options. And my advice is pick one, right? Cindy Ertman, she's my coach with the Defining Difference. She always says you can never have more than 3 cars out of the garage, right? You can't have more than 3 strategies. And that to me is probably too many. You probably need to have 1 or 2. Like if you're going to go all in on social, then do your social. And I can name probably 5 or 6 LOs this last year that have done it and are starting to really monetize it and get results from it. It takes a year, right? It's not something that happens right away.
Yeah,
but
for sure.
You got to pick one.
Yeah, and I think the problem is people do the hummingbird thing. They keep going from different thing to different thing to different thing, right? And diluting their power.
Yes.
I love the 3-car approach, and yeah, you might be right. Might be too many cars.
Might be. Some people are extra special. They can have the 3 cars out. I'm probably a 1 or 2. I'm the Gary Keller, the one thing. Just picking that one thing. That's where I've kind of found my success, kind of going all in on one thing at a time.
Yeah, very interesting. Okay, so here we are at the halfway point pretty much of the year, rolling into June here in a few days.
I can't believe.
I know, right? Before you know it, it'll be Christmas.
Insane.
What type of coaching would you be doing for people to finish this year strong?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, what would you advise they do? And if it sounds repetitive, that's okay, because guess what? Fundamentals always win. But
yeah. Well, first of all, I'd revisit your business plan. And if you don't have a business plan, do a business plan. Yes, do a business plan. So, I mean, it really is, I don't want to say it's simple because it isn't simple, but the fundamentals are simple, right? You need to have a plan, you need to have systems, and you need to have disciplines. And so you got to go back to, do I have those things in place? First and foremost, and do the SWOT analysis, right? Go through and make sure you've got your calendar dialed in, your disciplines dialed in. Because what I do know is it's was it Atomic Habits? You don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. If you do not have those in place, you're going to be flailing. And so what I generally see is loan officers who just don't have any plan, that are just kind of winging it. They're flailing and they're suffering. And it doesn't have to be that way. Get a plan, figure out what those disciplines are, and commit to it. And commit to it for 30 days. Do it every single day. Find an accountability partner. That's the second thing, Jeff. Like, I am big on coaching. I've been coached since 2005. I've had a coach. And if you don't want to invest in coaching, find somebody who will hold you accountable, at least, like that will hold your feet to the fire, that you can declare publicly what it is that you're saying that you want to do, whether it's a health goal or a professional goal, but get some accountability in your life. It makes a big difference.
I love that so much. Get some accountability. And get a coach. And I don't understand, if you don't have somebody else to essentially look over your shoulder, how do you see your blind spots?
Honestly, it is so true. I mean, I've had two coaches at one time. I was coaching with Richard Milligan for recruiting and Cindy Ertman, because Richard was a specialist in recruiting and Cindy was helping me build my team. And people just thought I was kind of crazy. And I pay for it all myself, my company. I mean, if you're not going to invest in yourself, who will? In fact, there's that Instagram guy, I can't remember his name, where he goes and he sees people driving up in really expensive cars and he asks them, how did you make your first $1 million? Or how much money what's the most money you made in a year? Right. And I saw him ask a gal who drove up in like a Lamborghini and really fit, she was probably in personal development or training or something. And he's like, what's the most money you made in a year? And she's like, $10 million. And he said, well, what's your one piece of advice? And she's like, invest in yourself, because if you won't invest in you, who will? And why should anybody else? And I think we forget that in this business. Loan officers, we want everybody to pay for everything for us. And at a certain point, Carl White says it, if your company won't pay for the assistant, pay for your own assistant. Because if you're so confident that you can get there, then pay for it yourself. So we have to invest in ourselves.
Yeah. How seriously are you taking it? I mean, you have the ability to earn $1 million in this business. I'm not saying you need to or want to, but you have the ability, the upside. And if you're in a place in your business right now where you're frustrated, you're burnt out, you're challenged, I get it. We've all been there.
Yes.
And I think it's just like, you need to decide, what do you want to do? Do you want to continue? And do you want it to continue as it is? Because, something's got to change, right? Well, in order for things to change, guess who's got to change, right?
That's right. The definition of insanity, right? Doing the same thing, expecting different results. And I think we do that a lot in our lives. I'm just as guilty. I mean, luckily I have a coach and, support system that shakes me out of it.
Right. And I want to say that too, as well, before we wrap up here, in terms of, I mentioned earlier about people, realtors, loan officers ask me, and I suggested go to a team. And the other part I say with that is, I look at company culture. So your company culture, just for the 20 or 30 minutes we've been talking here, I've heard multiple references to your team, your infrastructure, your support, your accountability, your coaching. So it's no wonder people thrive in that environment. And I feel for people who come to me and I have a conversation, I ask about their current environment or situation. Maybe they're at a broker where there's less support.
Right.
And it's like, okay, so maybe that's how you're going to pay for coaching. You're going to give up basis points, but you're going to go to a company, maybe like CMG, where it's just like, you're going to be in an environment now who actually will lift you up and support you with different resources. And so what do you give up for that? Maybe some bips, but guess what? You make it up in volume.
Yeah. I always say, for one, I will never badmouth any platform. I mean, you need the broker, you need the IMB, you need the bank, the credit union. It's an ecosystem, and it's very good for us to have competition. It's what keeps pricing in check. It's good for the consumer. It's good for our comp, product development, innovation, all those things. But what I will say is, when people want to go, to a broker for comp or price, here's what I tell them. You can have that same comp or price here, because what are you giving up to have that comp or that price? There's always trade-offs. We all get the same amount of dollars in trading. Maybe our execution get a little sharper if you're bigger and, securitizing, but it's not a lot, right? So mostly we're playing with the same dollars. So what are you giving up? What are the choices? And I'm not saying that I'm the right place for everybody. There's lots of great companies, but I will say platform and support probably matter more today and I've been in this business for 30 years. I've never seen an environment where people need structure. They need accountability. They need strong leadership. They need coaching. They need cheering. They need all the things right now. It's really hard to be a solopreneur right now. It's lonely and it's hard.
Oh, especially in the market that we're in, which is so volatile.
And there's some great big broker teams that have banded together and all work together. But that one guy sitting in his house, that's a hard thing to do. I mean, good luck to you.
Yeah.
Godspeed.
I can remember when I first started, going back to the Countrywide days, in the early days, one of the benefits I had was, I had a sales manager and I could walk in and run scenarios by him. Like, I was too green to understand, like, can I make this deal work? And then, he and I would sit in his office and we spend 20, 30 minutes going through this file and figuring out, can we make it work? Like, what's that worth?
Well, and we're back in that day because deals are so complex and so difficult. Like I was just talking to our underwriting leader the other day, and we have a chat open to all LOs that's underwriting where anybody can put a scenario in there. And I watch all the scenarios in there, and thank goodness we have a group that we can bounce things off of one another because we learn from that. But also some of the scenarios I'm seeing, I'm just like, that is crazy town. You think you see it, you've seen everything, and it's like you see something that you've never seen before. So it is important to have that community around you, in my opinion.
All right, so we're closing out with what to do for the balance of this year. It was have your business plan in order. Fundamentals are always in play. Anything else you want to add to that?
Well, I would say don't settle. Like, you can do more. And what are you compromising on? Most people are settling. When they say they want to do more, they're really content where they're at. And so I do a gut check on that. I mean, what I would say, I heard Darren Hardy say, I go to lots of things, and I remember him saying, there really aren't any new ideas. There's variations. We know what to do. We need reminders sometimes. We need that accountability. We need a swift kick in the booty sometimes. I know I do. But why are you stuck where you're stuck? And really do a hard look at that. And maybe it is you need a new company, a different platform. Maybe it is just a meeting with your manager to say, I need help. Ask for help if you need help. This is the kind of market where a lot of us need help. We don't have all the answers. So, for me, it's like, don't settle if you're feeling like you're not where you want to be.
I love that. Don't settle. And it goes back to the environment you're in as well, because if you're not in an environment that's lifting you up, if you're not surrounded by people who want to take the challenge of the market head on.
That's right.
Like, get around the right people who have the right mindset, who can break you out of that. I wrote down growth mindset versus fixed mindset.
Well, and I was looking at my notes on the few people that niche down. I mean, I was looking at just the handful. I mean, Brady's at 50, Harrison's at 46 million. Danny Meyer is 93 million year to date in personal production. He's my top producer up in Seattle, Snohomish market. So there are people doing remarkable things, a remarkable volume. So the business is out there. That's the one thing. I remember Rosemary David. I don't know if you've met Rosemary. She's my boss. She's been my boss. We've worked together for 20 years, and she's been my boss since 2011. And I never forget, she says, this individual originator cannot own market share. So the good news about that is I can double the amount of my loans, right? I can go from 2 to 4 or 4 to 8 or 8 to 16. Like, it's much more difficult for CMG to double their market share, right? But for me as an individual, I can go double my market share. I can triple, I can quadruple it. That's within my power and my grasp. And so it's just figuring out, what are those strategies? How do I take ground? And the last thing I will say, the thing that is what gets me up and excited in the morning, is this is the kind of market where you can take ground, because they need you today. They didn't need us in 20 and 21 when, homes were 10, 12, 20 offers, right? They need us today. We're a valuable asset today if we're doing our jobs right.
Yes, absolutely. Reminds me of the phrase separation season. Heard that said by a number of people. And I'll just kind of put a cherry on top of your point about you can double your business. One of the exercises I often take an LO through when they get in that fixed mindset, and I used to do this in Orange County whenever I would get down on me, right? And I'd be like, how come my business isn't growing? It's a tough market. I would pull up the purchase sales in my county, and I would look at how many purchase transactions went down. And I would ask, obviously, how many of those did I get?
Right. That's right.
And, it'll vary based on markets, but there are hundreds of purchase transactions going down in your backyard right now.
That's right.
You just heard from your example of Danny doing 90 million, Brady doing 50 million, and it's just like, there is business to be had. Let's completely.
How do you get that share of the pie? I mean, that's really what you got to ask yourself.
It's just harder to get it.
Jeff, you offer pre-done classes. Like, to me, that's what I would be doing. I'd be going out and teaching classes and holding webinars and getting in front of the one-to-many strategy, right? Getting in front of as many realtors as I possibly could. Even if only 2 show up, that's 2 more than you had, right? That show up for your class. A lot of loan officers get stuck on having to be, CE certified.
Right.
No, it doesn't.
No.
Teach a class on what are the latest AI, tools that they need to use. You'll get 10 agents to show up for that. I mean, to me, it's like, education, lead with education, right? That's the key to winning in this market.
Thank you, by the way, for bringing that up. But it goes back to, what is the problem when I do webinars and all this stuff with loan officers, there's 5 reasons why you don't get enough referrals, but usually it comes back to, more often than not, the reason why most LOs aren't getting enough referrals from agents is they're simply not talking to enough people.
That's right.
It, period.
That's right.
And that's what the one-to-many approach does. So yes, if anybody's interested in that, they know how to reach me. Anyway, we are officially out of time.
Okay.
This has been fantastic. We could keep riffing for another 30
minutes.
minutes.
I think we could easily.
I know you're busy. What's the best place for people who want to connect with you? Maybe just follow you, because you put out some great content, by the way. I follow you on LinkedIn predominantly.
Oh, thank you. Yes. Yeah. I am on LinkedIn. I'm on Instagram and Facebook, and it's all just Natalie Overturf. I don't have any fancy handle. It's just Natalie Overturf. I post almost every day on Instagram and Facebook, and at least weekly on LinkedIn.
I need to. You're inspiring me now, like, to post daily. I'm still working through
Well,
that.
I would have to give a shout out to Michelle Berman.
Michelle, what's up? Listening, Michelle.
Yeah,
yes.
She's a swift kick in the booty for me on that. She holds me highly accountable. So
yes. She will definitely hold a high standard.
Yeah, she's amazing.
Well, listen, I'm going to link up your social profiles in the show notes so everybody can follow you, say hi. And by the way, if you're listening to this and you heard this episode, just DM Natalie and let her know, hey, heard you on the episode.
I would love it.
Yeah, let her know what's one thing that stood out from you for this episode. So Natalie, can't thank you enough. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Jeff. I'm a big fan. I love your podcast.
Thank you so much. And listeners, you know what to do. Follow Natalie. If you like this episode, leave us a review. We'll see you on the next one. Bye.
All right. Take care.